Hey YouTube, back here again with a couple new mods to the bike. So I'm going to run through those and then just give some opinions, comments, and just feedback on what I have on the bike and what's working and what's not. So yeah, kind of like a long-term review. So on the bike I've got now, let me see how many miles I've got on this thing. 1,320 miles. It's running great. I just did a valve adjustment at around 1,000 miles. You're supposed to do it at 600 miles, but I was procrastinating. It's super easy to do on the Grom if you haven't done it on yours yet. All you need is some feeler gauges, and you're all set. So, two new things that I've added so far since the last video. Biggest thing is the new Brembo front caliper. I forgot the part number, M80, or it's available at Hard Racing. If you buy it through them, they've got this is the only one they carry. Well, this is one of the ones they carry, and then they carry a 4-piston, which is just insane for racing. I don't think a lot of people will be grabbing that, but it's really nice. The caliper, it comes with this caliper bracket adapter. I actually didn't receive the adapter when I got this my caliper. They just left it out of the order for some reason, so I had to wait another week for them to ship that to me so I can get it installed. But it's on now and it's working great. You can see on the actual disc, the old brake pad kind of only used this much of the brake rotor, but the new pads come all the way into here. So that takes a little bit of bedding in, because there is a slight lip right here from where the old pad stopped making contact, and now where the new pad goes in deeper. It takes a little bit of bedding in for that pad to start grabbing as well as it should. But after break-in and after a few hundred miles, the pad should be good to go, and it's amazing. There's a much more exponential feel to the braking performance as opposed to before. If you look at the graph, before, the graph of the braking would be like this. It goes up, 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 and then just kind of flattens out at a certain point. I mean, no matter how much braking force you put on the lever, the bike just doesn't stop. Although what I had before was so much better than stock, there's always room for improvement. So I tend to ride this thing hard just because it's such a small bike and it's just so much fun, that I was just noticing the braking could just be just a little bit better, and this was a cheap option. Things on the caliper, the whole kit was $180, so that was a no-brainer for me. So with the new caliper, if you look at a graph, it's just a curve, exponential curve straight up, and it just doesn't seem to top out at all. So yeah, if you're not careful, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble if you just slam on this thing. But it's working out really well. The second upgrade was this Ims Shift Lever. I follow another guy on YouTube that found this on Amazon, and I liked it so much I picked it up. It's only $30, and I just noticed it's loose. I guess you gotta put Loctite on this pinch bolt there, so I gotta do that. Good thing I saw that. You gotta be careful with these bikes. You know, any kind of super vibration, super bikes that are prone to vibration. You really gotta pay attention to all these nuts and bolts, and really just do a thorough check of your bike before you take it out. I'm a big proponent of pre-ride safety checks, and you know, it takes 10 minutes to do and saves you a lot of headache down the road. So the lever is working fantastic. It's so crisp. I mean, there's just no play at all. The only downside is it's much harder to find neutral now, just because there's so little play in how much the stroke to shift into a higher gear or lower gear, that it's very difficult to find neutral now. I'm finding that I've got to fiddle with it, and sometimes it is in neutral, but the neutral light isn't on, and then you just have to kick it down a hair for the neutral light to come on. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'm used to with the Daytona. This thing's notorious for, you know, not going into neutral very easily, and now this is kind of the same deal, so I'm kind of used to it by now. Another drawback that the guy I subscribed to said about this lever is that it's directly attached to the shift shaft right here, as opposed to the back of the rear set like on the stock shift lever. So now if you do drop your bike or tip it over, instead of this lever bending and the stock lever bending, now your shift lever is taking a lot of force to it. But if you look at the design of this lever, it's a flat bar, so I would suspect that this would bend before any real damage occurred to the shift shaft, and it does have a folding toe. Although this would only help if the bike was sliding forwards. But you never know, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But so far it's working great, and I'm happy with it. An update on the foot pegs. Foot pegs are the best thing I've gotten for this bike so far, besides the Ohlins, I mean. The only drawback I've noticed now is that if I'm coming to a stop while decelerating using the rear brake as well as downshifting, my knees are in this little fold here, in this little crease. You know, if I'm just cruising around with my foot, with my toe on the foot peg like this, it's fine. My knees sit right in this pocket. But then as soon as I go to downshift or brake with the rear brake, my knees move up and forward into this little sharp area, and it's just it's not the most ideal position. But I'm 6'1", and I've got long legs, so maybe I could drop this down. I can go down like 10 millimeters, so maybe if I drop that down, it'll be a little better. And also, one thing you got to keep in mind is that now your knees are so much higher that your knees will touch the bars. If, like I said again, if you have your foot ready to shift or your foot on the rear brake, and then you're going full lock, you will hit your knees with the handlebars. And that doesn't sound like a big issue, but when you're making tight maneuvers in parking lots at slow speeds and you're full lock and using the rear brake, your knee kind of gets wedged in to the handlebar, and that's caused me to lose balance a couple times, and makes you look like a noob, but whatever. The drawbacks and the pros and cons. So the exhaust is working great, still sounds good. The Olin suspension is fantastic. Hands down, the first thing you should get for a Grom if you could afford it. It just makes this bike so much more fun to ride. Yeah. The mirrors are not so great.
I would like to get rid of them completely and go with some bar end mirrors, but I really feel like lever protectors kind of suit the bike, and I don't know. I don't know what to do on that. These aren't the greatest bar end, or these aren't the greatest lever protectors anyways. They're just plastic, but I'm not sure what to do about those yet. Thinking about chucking them in the mirrors and maybe just going with some bar end mirrors like I have on here. These are the CRG lane splitters. They're like $80 a piece, kind of expensive. And but I'm just worried about making the bars any wider than they already are. I like this, split lanes in traffic, and when it gets tight, you start really getting close to cars with the width of these bars. And I'd rather not make the bike any wider than it already is. Yeah, I think that's about it. The levers are working great. ASV levers. Really, really nice. One thing with the new calipers now is it takes a lot more force on the actual lever to get the bike to stop. I'm thinking because now you have a Brembo caliper with a stock master cylinder, and they're just not so compatible. I would think if I went with a Brembo master cylinder, it would match much better. But so that brings me back to the levers. The shorties have they have a small fulcrum, and so on top of the more pressure needed to stop the bike, you've got a shorter lever. So it really does take a strain on your, if you're using two fingers, which this lever is designed to do. This setup would work much better with the full length lever, where you can get some maybe 3 or 4 fingers on the brake lever to help ease the amount of pressure needed to slow the bike. But it's not a huge complaint. Yeah, that's about it, guys.